Hello and welcome to How Do I Build a Power BI Dashboard in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. My name is Steven Renders. I am a Microsoft certified trainer for Microsoft Dynamics NAV, and I have created this video for you in collaboration with Microsoft and Plataan, a Microsoft Dynamics Solutions training center in Belgium. At the end of this video, you will understand how do I build a Power BI dashboard in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. The objective of this video is to show how to build a Power BI dashboard in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015, and it's part 1 in a series of 2 videos about this subject. We will do this in 3 easy steps. In step 1, we will create query objects for sales invoice lines, products, and customers. In step 2, we'll then publish the query and page objects as OData Web Services and test the availability. And in step 3, we will create a data model by using Power Pivot, and we will import the queries and also a date dataset via the Azure Marketplace. And then we will link the data sources by creating relations and filters in Power Pivot. So let's get started with the first step and see how we can create query objects to publish sales invoice lines, products, and customers. So I'm working in the development environment of Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. I'm going to the query object. I'm going to create a new query. And as a data item, I'm going to select the sales invoice line table. I'm going to do it like this. Then I am going to select some fields. Just for the purpose of the video, I'm going to select all of the fields. And next I am going to save my query as 50,000, and I'm going to call it sales invoice line. Then I'm going to create a second query, for which I'm going to use the item table as a data item. I am selecting a number of fields from the item table, like number and description, and then some other fields. I'm going to also save this query and call it a product with the number 50,001. Next, I will create a third query. As we can see here, I've already created it. It's called actually customer. I'm using the customer as a data item, and I am also including default dimension and dimension values. So I have here my default dimension table, which I am using, filtering, making the connection on the customer number, filtering on the table ID 18. And I'm also using the dimension values, which I am connecting basically to the dimension or the default dimension table. And I'm saving this query as 50,002. So basically what we have right now is 3 queries. When we run the queries, we can see the results. We can see them here for the customer query, including dimension information. I can see it here for my product query, and I can also see the results for the sales invoice lines. In step 1, we had a look at how to create query objects for sales invoice lines, products, and customers. Let's see now how to publish the query objects as data web services and test their availability. To publish objects as web services, all we need to do is look for the web services page. And here we are going to publish an object as web service. You can decide on the type of object. Then you can decide the number of the object to publish. You can look for it. Next, for example, you can give it a name. And to publish it, you need to click here on this option. So I have already prepared this at the moment. So I'm just going to delete this line that I used in the example. What have I done? I have published the customer, the product, and the sales invoice line query, and I am also publishing the salesperson's purchasers page 14, which I'm going to give the name salespeople. To test the availability of the web services, all we need to do is have a right click here in the OData URL, select the option Open in a browser, and we can see the results immediately in Internet Explorer. So I'm also going to do it for the other objects. We can see the results of the queries. And here we are with the results. In step 1, we discussed how to create the query objects. In step 2, we had a look at how to publish them as OData Web Services and verify the availability in Internet Explorer. Now in step 3, we will have a look at how to create the data model in Power Pivot. Power Pivot is actually a part of Microsoft Office Excel. So I'm first going to launch Excel. I'm going to create a new blank workbook. And then I'm going to go to Power Pivot and I'm going to click on Manage. This will then open the Power Pivot add-in, in which I'm going to be able to create the data model for the sales dashboard. As the data model, I'm going to use my OData web services. So I'm going to click on Get Data from an OData service. And then from OData feeds. In the feed URL, I am just going to paste what I have already prepared here. So I'm going to use, for example, my customer URL. I'm just going to copy the information. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to click on the next button. This will fetch the information from the customer web service. I'm going to click on finish, and now I'm going to have my first worksheet in here. And I can see all of my customers. I'm going to repeat this for the other web services. So get data from an OData feed. I'm going to select my product URL right now. I'm going to import that one. While that's importing, I'm also going to copy the URL for my sales invoice lines. So products are imported. I can see customers, I can see products, and I'm going to repeat this now for my sales invoice lines. Next, and finish. And after the sales invoice lines, I'm going to do it for my salesperson. So I'm also going to copy this cell. We are finished. Close, and then I am going to click here from OData feeds. Fetch me my salespeople, please. Going to click on finish. So at the moment, what we have right now is we have 4 results of the data sets of the OData web services, and we have them now in Power Pivot. So at the moment, I have imported my query objects into Power Pivot. But what we would like to do right now is also create an extra worksheet in which I am going to have some date information. Now, this is not going to come from Dynamics NAV. To be able to do that, I'm going to import a date datasets using the Azure Marketplace, and I'm going to use Power Data or Power Data to be able to do that. So I'm going to fetch some information from a Windows Azure Marketplace. I'm going to connect to it. I'm just going to have to activate some information. There are lots of data feeds actually here to use in the Windows Azure Marketplace, and I'm going to search for one which is completely free to use. I'm going to look for dates, for example. Just a few moments. So I have some results. You can see we have date dimension, we have some other information. Here I'm going to use the Power Data feeds. I'm going to connect. Now I'm going to have to use my Windows Live ID to be able to do that. I'm just going to use this. Just going to type in the password, connecting to the data market at Windows Azure. And as we can see here, we have some date information. There's also some time information. I'm not requiring the time information. I'm just going to use the dates. I'm going to then select this query, and I'm going to import it into Power Pivot. I'm going to call it date. I'm going to give it a friendly name. And now we will see it appearing in the extra worksheet. It's going to start importing all of the dates. This can take a few moments. So here we can see the results. As you can see, there were a lot of dates imported into Power Pivot. So I'm just closing this window, and I'm going to have a look at the results here in my date tab. And as you can see, we have a lot of fields in here with a lot of information about dates. I can see my day names, I can see abbreviations, I can see calendar days of months. I also see, for example, here more detailed information. If I go to the right, I can see my month names. I have a lot of information. I can see the quarters, I can see some keys for my dates. So basically I have a lot of different visualizations. I have my week information, and it's all in here. Now that we have imported our dates into a Power Pivot, we have actually the results of the queries, we have the dates, and what we need to do right now is we need to actually link the results of the different data sources. And in order to do that, we are going to create relations in the Power Pivot, and we might also want to filter the results, for example. Let's see how we can do this in Power Pivot. Here we are in the results of the sales invoice line. I am going to look here for my bill to customer number, and I'm going to create a relationship to link it to the customer results. So the table sales invoice lines, in that table I'm going to use the bill to customer number to link it actually to my customer result set. And there in the customer result set, what I am going to use is basically the number of my customer. So as we can see, we have an error here, and the reason for this error is because in the result set of the customers I have multiple entries for the same customer. Of course, this is because we have used dimensions in the customer query. So let me go back to the customer query, and there are multiple ways on fixing this issue. Let me just show you what happens if I'm going to change my query object and I'm going to delete my dimensions. And if we require them afterwards, we can still, for example, create an extra query object with the dimensions and link it, for example, in Power Pivot. So I've changed my customer query object, which was published as web service, and now let's refresh the results in Power Pivot. So because I've changed my customer query object and I've deleted some fields, the easiest thing to do would be to delete my link to this customer and then recreate it. I'll do this. So now it's deleted. I'm just going to recreate it from the data feeds. I'm going to select the customer. The URL is still the same. I'm going to import it. It's importing back into Power Pivots. So we have the customers again. Now I can go to my sales invoice line data set. I'm going to select my bill to customer number. Right click. I'm going to create the relationship. I'm going to do it to the customer table. There I will select my number field, no error, and I'm going to create the relationship. Next, I'm going to go to the number in the sales invoice lines. As we can see, we have a lot of different numbers, and that's because they are not all items. So I'm just going to apply a filter, and what I'm going to do is only select the sales invoice lines or filter them on item. So this is how we can apply a filter in Power Pivots. And next, what I'm going to do is going to create a relationship from the number field to my product data set by making use of the number field. So now these two are also related. Then I will go to the posting date. From the posting date, I'm going to create a relationship with my date data set. And what I'm going to use here is the following fields. It's the full date field, and that's how I'm going to link these two data strips. Or relationships, voila. I have this relationship, and last but not least, what I'm going to do is start from my customer table in which I have the salesperson code. From there, I am going to create a table relation to the salespeople data set. I'm going to use the code field in there. We have now created relationships, and what we can also do is we can visualize them in the data diagram view. We can zoom in, zoom out, and I can see here a representation of my data model, which I can see all of my tables here and the relationships that we have created. To summarize all of the steps, in step 1 we created query objects for the sales invoice line, the product and customer information. Then in step 2 we published them as OData web services. We also published page objects for the salespeople, and we tested the service availability. Then in step 3 we have created a data model in Power Pivot. We started by importing the query object and the page object as a data web services. Then we made use of the dates actually by making use of the Windows Azure Marketplace. And in step 3, we created relationships or links in between the data sources. We also applied filters. And now basically we have our data model ready in a Power Pivot as a basis for the dashboard that we can build by making use of Power View. But that will be the subject of the part 2. So this briefly explains how to create a data model in the Power Pivot as a basis for a sales dashboard. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something. And I hope to see you again in one of the other titles of the How Do I series for Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015.